Hello and welcome to my YouTube project, The Pars-pro-Toto Playing New Sounds on Parts of the Flute, which is, by the way, the title of my book, which I wrote for the music publisher Zimmermann in Frankfurt. In addition to this book, you find an accompanying CD, which contains a lot of examples of sound material. That's important and useful, but the concerts and workshops in the past have shown that in order to get a sufficient overview of what is all about the Pars-pro-Toto playing, you have to listen and watch. That's the reason why I decided to prepare this YouTube project. On the one hand, there are clips in German, English and French to explain the basics of these techniques. On the other hand, you find two separate recordings of my pieces in which you can hear the intensive use of Pars-pro-Toto techniques. The Pars-pro-Toto playing, what does it mean exactly? The term Pars-pro-Toto is a linguistic term, a rhetorical device. A part is considered as the entity. For example, if you talk about the inhabitants of a village and then you address them not as persons but as, for example, 100 souls living there, that's a Pars-pro-Toto. I chose this term for my sound techniques because it defines in the shortest and the most precise way what is all about the Pars-pro-Toto playing. Each part of the flute's body and combinations of them are considered and used as independent instruments with their own typical color, which can only be produced in that way. In other words, the foot joint, the main joint foot joint combination, the head joint foot joint combination. In addition to my research concerning pitches and scales, I had to invent a notation in order to guarantee a common language for composers and flutists. And here we are right in the middle of this exciting topic. First of all, I would like to present the different sounds and colors. Right from the beginning I realized that this is more than just some improvisatory gag, but it should be my task to find out what is possible referring to pitches and their notation in a clear and easy way. Of course, you will find detailed material in my book. Here I just want to present the different sound qualities, but let me tell you just a little anecdote in this context. When I presented my techniques to the members of the music publisher Zimmermann in Frankfurt, the CEO, Mazur, who regrettably passed away years ago, said, and I hadn't played any sound yet, "Listen, Mr. Mazur, isn't that a very radical and brutal way to destroy a flute to play just on the remaining bits? The audience simply fears some anarchistic noise." But what a surprise when they heard the melodic and enchanting phrases. This sort of prejudice or being skeptic I also experienced in France when I studied at the Paris Conservatory with Alain Marion, where the flutists in the beginning couldn't imagine how a destroyed flute, a flute démontée, might sound. Anyway, let's get started. Here's the foot joint. Due to the diameter of the tube, we flutists are lucky to have the possibility to produce sounds on the foot joint in shakuhachi style. On piccolo, alto and bass flute it is not possible. Shakuhachi style, what does it mean? According to the Japanese wooden flute called shakuhachi, the sounds are produced by covering the tube with your lower lip using the same embouchure as on your flute. It is no problem if you use a C foot joint instead of a B foot joint as I do. On the C foot joint there is one key missing, but you can produce the same pitches in the decisive register like on the B foot joint. Only a few exceptions in the highest and lowest register, and only the notation has to be adapted accordingly. In my book I'm dealing with this topic intensively. The notation is well developed and described for both alternatives. Furthermore, concerning the level of research, each possible pitch on the C foot joint and on the B foot joint is notated and proven by a recorded entity on the CD. Every flutist knows this melody. Green sleeves, indeed. However, how wonderful this melody sounds when it's played in that way. fascinating, and my thirst for knowledge led me to the discovery of all playable pitches, sounds, scales, and to the invention of a notation as I mentioned before. I started with simple graphical forms as squares, circles, and arrows. Please look into my book for further information. Here in these video clips I place emphasis on sound and optical demonstration only. Here is another example, the introduction of my piece Senonk. The possibilities of sound production on the foot joint can easily be transferred to the main joint foot joint combination. It is again irrelevant if you use a C or B foot joint or open or closed holes. In my book you find a detailed analysis of all alternatives. On the main joint foot joint combination, the different pitches are not only produced in shakuhachi style, even the sound quality does remind us of a Japanese shakuhachi. Listen to an example of the traditional Japanese folk music. The melody is called akatonbo. Isn't that fascinating? You don't have to purchase another instrument. These colors are, so to speak, inborn in our flute. It was only my challenge to describe how to produce them and, of course, to invent the notation. Notation is a central topic in my book. Concerning the main joint foot joint combination, sound and fingering are always notated in two separate lines. I integrated the traditional fingerings but had to adjust them to a special situation. The fingering for B, for example, does not only produce one fixed pitch, but a variety of pitches. For example, there's a second possibility. For one certain pitch, there can be a variety of, for example, 10 or more fingerings, each of them different in dynamic or color. For example, now we have reached a stage in this presentation where I would like to warn and encourage you at the same time. The variety of sounds and the flexibility of the Pars-pro-Toto playing have its price. You have to give up the security of intonation. In other words, the certainty that a fingering for B does produce a B does not exist anymore. But no worries, after your first attempts, when each little melody seems to be impossible, please do not give up. The abilities will grow with each attempt. Pitches and whole melodies are going to be possible. And then you are ready for the next step, the Pars-pro-Toto playing in a more polyphonic structure, for example accompanied by a complete flute or a piano. Actually, I'm composing a duet for two flutes in which you will find sections where two different parts of the flutes communicate in Pars-pro-Toto style. You see, I'm still fascinated and there's still so much more to discover. But of course you might ask now, he seems to have forgotten something. Yes, indeed, we still have two Pars-pro-Toto techniques to be explained in detail. The head joint and the head joint foot joint combination. Every flutist knows the first steps on the head joint. in beginner lessons. In my book you find a systematic scale for all pitches possible on the head joint. I have made the wonderful experience that students are really delighted and proud when they do not only play easy exercises on the head joint for one voice including more or less not fixated pitches, but when the teacher identifies the pitches and miraculously accompanies them on the complete flute, forming a little duet. Little students proudly told their parents, "Today we actually played music." The same is to be said about the head joint foot joint combination. As mentioned before, it is irrelevant if you use a C or B foot joint. In my book you also find a chapter for these alternatives. And it is so exciting for students to discover all keys of the foot joint long time before they play sounds in the low register on the complete flute. Please listen to two sections from my piece Parenti as examples for these techniques. Please allow me some last thoughts. Extended techniques like whistle sounds, multiphonics, key clicks, sing and play, etc. they all can be used in the context of the Pars-pro-Toto playing. There is no limit. As always, detailed material in my book. I would like to share one experience with you. Even if you are skeptic with regards to the delicate intonation, I assure you delicate intonation is an advantage, especially for the complete flute. You will become much more aware, flexible and careful in terms of intonation. Accordingly, your normal flute playing will rise to another level. Please try. A last remark. As I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, my compositions Senonc and Parenti are also completely recorded here on YouTube in separate clips. I would like to start an appeal to other composers among you out there. Please use these Pars-pro-Toto techniques as serious ways of expression. Flutists all over the world will be grateful, that's for sure. If you have further questions, please do not hesitate to contact my music publisher Zimmer in Frankfurt. Just look into the website and they will pass over your questions to me. I wish you all the best, good luck and greetings from Berlin, yours Andreas Mazur.